There you go.
Oh, we all got to agree to it.
Yeah.
All right. So the funny part on mop flies is because, and I did get out a little bit this weekend, and mop flies came up as a conversation, fishing and talking to, other people locally here. And, it's kind of that, do you want to try them? Do you not want to try them? Oh, mop flies is kind of like squirmy worms, right? Just as far as, what works and what doesn't. What's funny is that everybody has them in their bag. And it's something where as you get a little bit more comfortable with, but the part which amazes me so much about mop flies is what you can turn them into at any given time, because it can be a jig, it can be just a streamer, it can just be like an egg laying something. But the funny part is so mop flies come in all varieties of colors, and as you get used to, you start walking through and you're like, hey, that's a little dusting rag. Here, this is the latest. It's a dusting rag, and it's all mop fly stuff. Here, look, mop fly has it written all over it, right? You want to stop and you want to buy it. I have enough probably to last me for a lifetime. You can find some of it on Amazon if you wanted to go that route. The other thing is the microfibers, and you can find them in the auto sections. So kind of there for a camera wise. And these are all potential mop flies. The other thing is, and don't start, and I didn't tell you to start going into your bathroom and start taking apart your bath mats, but they also come in bath mats. And the best part is that you find somebody else who's also tying mop flies and trade colors, because you don't need a 3-foot bath mat of all the same color. So you find that people have little sections of them. And then I'll switch over my camera real quick because this is kind of funny. Just from, again, when you're least expecting of where you're going to find this. Here's one for you with a dog toy. So, yep, really, they're little, and you can see this guy's never survived anything because his head's gone and everything else, but it's got some yellow little nubs on there. It's got this bright kind of pinkish orange. So again, just kind of keep your eyes out, anything that has that same little bit of texture. And then the only part where I'll kind of show you with how to attach them, because I think that's the other thing too, is that if you end up putting them on and your mop fly falls apart, then you're like, what did I do wrong? Well, you're not going to cut in from this fiber. It's actually going to be how the mop's made. And again, you can find, so these are actually slippers, apparently, that you can put on your feet and clean your floors. So just keep an eye out. Great beige color. This other one that I held up earlier is from a bath mat. So it has some white in it. It has some silver in there. So it makes for a great, without having to do anything, it's already built into the fly, basically. Here are a few mop flies. And so you can see anything. And I've had people say, why do you spend so much time on a mop fly? And I don't use them very often. They get very weighted because all this area is going to fill with water. So it's a very heavy. If you're trying to do this under an indicator, you're going to need something fairly large on that. But it does give you an idea. As far as hackle, gives a little bit of chenille to it. And then that was the last little bit that was from that bath mat with the white and silver in it. And then here's from the dog toy, has a little bit more again. Here just has a little bit of hackle to it. And here you can go more into your leech style. Just as far as it's really, once this gets wet, this is going to lay down more on here. Has a little bit of UV in there, and I'll show some different polar on putting them in. You can go really crazy, add a bead, so this is more like the trout candy, just has a little bit of mop on the back. So this is more typical of almost a woolly bugger, just has the mop on the back. And then you can go the other direction, put the mop on the front. So it looks like an egg sucking leech. This is going to still do a little bit of the same as far as it's going to absorb a lot of water. You're going to be able to play this kind of off the bottom and up as you fish it. And there's a whole bunch of mop styles. So anybody have any questions yet on mops? Other than why are you on this call to look at mops? So sorry, I was making sure everybody could get in the call. I just had a text. So one of the things that I'm going to use just on this silver portion, or it's that cream and silver, and it's, you have a section, so you cut underneath to keep it clear. And so you're going to try to avoid any of the mops that you have. Then you're going to come in, and you don't have to grab the material that it was sewn to. And I started just with kind of a white in here, but I'm going to come in underneath, cut that. And all of this is woven within what makes it. And so the part is the prep, right? So as I pull away some of these fibers, and this is the one error that I see a lot of times, is that folks just tie the whole thing on, and then they can't figure out why their fly is falling apart. So you can see in here the cord, basically. And that's a part that I want to make sure is down on the fly, that it adheres, and I've got it as close as I can. Now I can come in, I'm going to measure about the length of the hook shank. I'm going to come in at the end, come in over some of the fluff, but then I'm going to come in and grab that cord, because the cord is what's going to keep it from falling apart. So I don't need any real glue to it. And I've got it in place. It's not going anywhere, and it won't fray apart. But you've got to separate out that cord. So I'll show it again, kind of on any of them. You can take a green, same thing. So the green weenie, which is a really popular, you just put this on a jig head. And again, pull away your fibers until you start seeing some of the core on here, and you can see them, and they're woven in. It's a thread type, unlike the other section of it. So you can see how those separate out. So again, you're going to grab that portion of it, make sure that it's down onto your hook shank, and then you go from there. On this portion of it, so I can do just about anything now. Now it's kind of up to me as far as the style. And we talked about chenille a little bit. You can do anything from just laying up some chenille, finish it off, and you're done. You could actually run that all the way up, call it done. It's a worm.
Amy, does it make a difference on the thread that you use?
No, I'm on a Vivus 8/0 right now, and so it's not any more strong, or I've got good tension on it, and I would say it's more about pressure on there. I wouldn't use something that you're going to use for, size 20 dry, but I tend to go to Vivus 8/0 almost on everything that I'm using. You can use some of your waxed on your threads on here and get a little bit more color to it and see how that lays out. So if I wanted to finish off the head and I just wanted a little bit of color, I could do that and be done. But I generally almost always use the same threads across the board. Nebraska will laugh and they will say I always use white thread. I don't. Obviously I have other colors, but it's more on just your preference and your break strength that you get used to tying with is really the way to go, because it's not a lot of pressure. This would not be even as much pressure as trying to put foam on your fly. So that kind of gives the mop tail on there. Not really exciting, but that could be done. I'm using a jig hook on this because what I wanted to do is flip in the water. And we've talked about straight shanks as opposed to and what they do. So here my line is connected, and this is going to flip a little bit, meaning that tail section's down a little bit lower. It's a full take, and in how it rides, it's a little bit more weedless. It is going to get heavier, and that's the other error that I end up seeing. Once you have your mop in, do not come in and cut it from this end. You can't, because what'll happen, just like how I laid this on, is it's going to unravel and you're going to find yourself with 2 strings or 3 at the end and no mop. So you can't cut the blunt end. You can only cut from the part where you separate it from the material. And that's a big thing too, is that when you first start out with these, you know, kind of start and get a feel for it, but you can never come in and cut. So here I cut from the fabric portion of it. I can't come in and cut that, because here you go, you fish it 3 or 4 times and you have no fly. It's gone. You only have thread. And that would be the big error on trying to tie in any mop flies. The other part is don't short yourself too much. If I only wanted this little bit, go ahead and cover it up. It's a heavier fly to fish with. And so go ahead and use the body material to your favor. Again, you could come in and wrap now with chenille. You could do a lot of different things. You could put in your hackle. I've got saddle out somewhere. And so if I just wanted to fish this out almost, I'm going to use a little bit bigger just so you see. But if I wanted to just put in some saddle now and almost treat this as if it were a woolly bugger, and prep my saddle hackle, come in, and I'm going to go ahead and finish this all the way out to the bend on the jig. I'm just not going to leave. I'm not going to do anything on that portion of it, because this is the part where I want kind of the view. I'm going to come in on this and wrap it in. I go the 3 times around, once behind it, so that's a little bit more perpendicular. You can come back in and add it behind, or you could take it up now and drop it in front. I'm going to take full wrap behind. And you can see what that's going to do once it's wet. You can see how it's going to overlay, right? It's going to kind of create that veil. I'm just going to run my thread back. I'm not even going to worry about, you know, am I smashing down any? It's just not a time consuming fly. I'm going to come back up. I can tie it off now. I can cut off my hackle and I'm good to go. And just put on your whip finish. Clean up on that one little stem right on the front, and I'm off and going. And again, once this is wet, this is all going to lay down. It's going to kind of veil on that egg on the back or the mop. And that's what we're trying to look for on the shaping of it. Oh, my scissors just magnetized as I picked up a hook. So that gives you kind of an idea. Again, when it's wet, practice with these, see how they look. When you do, you know, kind of when you're putting them together, I've got enough clearance underneath because everything's going to the back and kind of covering that. So even though it looks long, it's not a dry fly hackle on here. It's going to lay down on that and kind of veil it. You can fish this under an indicator. You can kind of strip it a little bit so that it comes along the bottom and it looks like something trying to come up out of the rocks. So that gives kind of one example on that. And anybody mop questions? Anything at all? I'm going to move to a different hook on this one, just to give you kind of an idea that you can use what you have in your hook supply. So a little bit smaller, more on kind of an emerger. This is a wet fly, so it's not as light as. And to give you the last one that I just did, kind of gives you an example. It's a jig hook and a little bit heavier. You can go a little bit lighter. And then I go with a caddis on that one. And that's what this is right now. And again, I would just want a little bit coming out on the back part. So that one where I lost it, a little dog toy one. This is great because it has a little bit smaller section. So I can come in and just grab that little bit of, same thing. I'm going to come in, lay down my thread. And drop it a little bit further back because I want to start there to load it in. Same, I'm coming in. I'm going to clip in here, and you don't have to clip to the fabric, but I like that for my own style. Now I can come back in and pull off till I see, and this is a little bit more visible because these are kind of white. So you can, now you can see the threads of how this was made. And I want to make sure that I get those threads. I don't want to just lay it down on top of fluff. That's when you lose the mop fly. So now I've got ample amounts, got some pinched in my fingers, come in, it's a positioning, and it's firm. As far as nothing's moving around, it's not rolling in there. And you can see again, kind of creates a great look. So now you can come in, we talked about, again, lots of different shiny stuff you can do, all different on your polar, right? You can make it look like anything. So kind of coming out of the rocks, coming out. This is also a good trash fly. If you save a lot of little short stubs of your material, this would be a great one. Save them for your mop fly pile because they're kind of the kitchen sink. So I've got a little bit of flash here. It has an up and a down. So when I hold it this direction, everything wants to kind of go one way. I go like this, looks like a bad hair day. So I'm going to flip it. And I'm just tying this in as I would any other material. And we talked about streamers before. I'm going to get this nice and anchored in. I can go to the back. I can come back up to the front. And now with this section of it, I'm going to pull all this, just like with the streamer. I want it all to go the same direction. As I come through. And these are touching wraps. So as they come around, and all of a sudden this looks really spidery, buggy, right? Come around, and I'm on my last one. I'm gonna lock this in. I like this material. It actually has some black. It has some translucent in it, and it has a purple UV. So I'm sure that doesn't show up super great. I'm gonna come in and same thing, finish it in. You could color off your thread, or you could use a different. Come in. And these get really beat up. So if you're going to use anything, and I don't recommend using a UV on the finish on this part of it, but maybe a flat head cement, if that's your choice on here. Wouldn't necessarily do UV or super glue, head cement, because it gives a little bit of flex to that too. So I've got this in place. And so one of the things where I'm going to show you guys a trick. So this has too much material in it. And we've all run into that too, of like cutting it and it creates that fresh cut blunt look on there. So I'm sure your wives will know what you're talking about when you go and ask about what are thinners. For people who have thick hair, you already know what these are, but it comes in and it'll actually cut, and you're only removing a section of that. I just want to remove some. I want to keep some of the leggy, but I don't want to keep all the material, and I don't want a blunt cut. So I don't want, just like how we don't finish off woolly buggers, I don't want to come in here and blunt cut, but I don't necessarily want all of this at the end. So these thinning scissors, you can come right in, cut it, it cuts a portion of it and it pulls it away. And you can just keep going back until you have what you want. So then you have just a really leggy look to it. You kind of have to imagine what these look like a little bit wet. If you don't like that one, you can cut it out of the way. If you don't want these on the front, you can cut it away. But those are kind of cool for being able to clean up some of your hackle without coming back in. It works great for marabou as well. And that would be another one. So nothing. You guys are like dead quiet.
It kind of looked like some kind of spider out of some scary movie.
It is. And then, you know, what's great is it gets down. So after the first time you cast it on the water, it's going to sit on top a little bit. What I would recommend even with these is dip it in the water before you cast. So get it wet so that it goes where you want it to. And then you're right, it's going to come across the bottom. So you can imagine getting like all crazy with all this. It looks like it's coming up from your rocks almost, or depending on that height, it looks like it's in between as far as a merger pattern. But kind of, again, it has something different. You can go really small on, you know, could you use other materials? Absolutely. Without a doubt, you could use something else other than a mop. But these have come into play and they're here for this day. But you have everything from like a pink variation, white, green, blue. Oh, here's the other half of the dog toy. Oh, here, no, it's a new dog toy. There. Floppy dog is what it's called. Walmart.
Do you have a dog?
I do not have a dog. That's why I get to tie flies. But look, it has a little hanger if you want to hang it by this. But you can tell I've been working on its ears some. But yeah, that might work for you, Terry. You know, you can give them one and then take the other one for your tying experience. So any questions? You guys want to move around and show your mop flies, or what do we want to do? Mops sure don't need to take up a full hour.
I tied a couple, but. I
Yeah,
got-
And they worked on your 10 carat rod too.
A couple that I did. Let's see if you could see that. I used that because before I was doing fly fishing, I was doing zone 3 at Bennett a lot, and Berkeley makes something called mice tails, and the yellow with the orange tail was the best. And so I remembered that. So I actually made this mop fly using the same as you would do a glow ball. So a lot of people are calling mop and glow. So this was one color I did. Here I did the tricolor, but with green. That works really well. And I have a small weight on that. That's it. The one thing that I have noticed when I fish these, when they do sink a little slow. So if the stream's going left to right, cast a little bit further left than you would normally do to give it enough time. Because if you cast straight out, it's gonna take a couple feet for it to drop to the zone you want. So you need to kind of compensate for that. If you still have a hard time with that, I actually did this one with a heavier weight, and that kind of dropped it a little bit. And that's where I was having issues. But at Bennett and then at Bush Wildlife 28, this one's done very well, but I've used a full sinking fly line. And I'll cast it out there and I'll let the weight and the weight of the line bring it down. And I just slow crawl it along the bottom, and I've had really good luck with this, especially on those days that the sun's out and they kind of go a little bit deeper. This has kind of saved me on my trips out there. One last one I did where you kind of did too, you did hackle on it. This one did really well for some reason at Merrimack, but everywhere else I tried, it didn't work. It was, again, that chartreuse green. I put some hackle on it. It's a little bit smaller. Yeah, one area that we like hanging out at Merrimack, this did really well. And then I think for the last one I tried was sorry about this. This is a Frankenstein. I almost called it like a poodle tail, where it's a thread jig upper, but I was trying to see how can I make a mop fly sink quicker. So again, this is a big weight. And then it was actually a nymph thread body, which is a little poof of the mop fly at the back. So, but just different variants of it, and they do well.
Those are great. And I think a lot of times too, as far as don't forget your lead or lead-free lead, but don't forget that just the same you would use on any other fly. So you can lead these as well. And that will help if you don't have enough room on the hook shank, you don't want a great big thing, but you want something, just put 2 or 3 wraps of your lead in there.
Yep.
And I think getting the fly wet is one of the keys. We look at all these and they're made for microfiber. So they're made for sucking up water on cars when you're washing them. Wash them first. So run them through the washer and dryer, but do not add a dryer sheet. And that'll help take out some of that absorbency that it resists water,
Okay.
if that makes any sense. So kind of like your bath towels, you know, when you don't run them with a dryer sheet, sometimes that helps them absorb water a little bit better. And I think that's one of the things also to help those get down and sink faster. But great fishing techniques on that, Mick. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I
One
tied a
last
couple.
color. Oh, go ahead.
This is one, and I did wrap it with wire. And then I went with peacock curl over top of that. And then with that sparkly chenille and then a little CDC up front on it. With
That's
the mop tail end on it. So it ought to sink real fast. And I don't know what it's going to end up looking like or the fish will like it. And then the other one I did was this again with wire, basically some peacock curl, kind of palmered it and then just put a little mop head on it with a little bit of a feather there for a tail. Just to try stuff.
Great. What, which one was working for you the other day, Roger, last week when you went and you were using off your Tenkara?
See if I've got it here. Actually, it's rather simple. This one's been used. It's kind of like a crackle back up front with just simply a tail on the end. And I think this was simply, I was letting it just kind of sink to the bottom. I think the color helps the trout kind of pick it up when they may go for the bug front end or, you know, as far as actually deciding to take it, but just a crackle back with a mop tail.
That's great. I like that blue too. And you can see with the length of it too. I mean, it's not something where it's really tight up on the hook bend. You know, it doesn't have to be a little nub of like an egg. You can go pretty long on these, which is pretty, so just a lot of versatility to them.
I try not to go really longer than the hook much because otherwise you get them, you know, taking the mop and missing the hook.
Yeah.
But
That's a good one. Nice one.
There's some of my ideas on it.
And I think, I don't know that John joined in tonight with Omaha. He might still be Thanksgiving it up. But he had shown some where he was taking just the green and tying it to a jig head, and that's it. And that's where I learned it, was that tied to a jig head with the exaggerated jig head with the ball already on it and the eye painted on. And that's the first time I saw it in probably 2017, I think. And where somebody had then just dubbed right behind the collar, and it works great and still works great. But it is something where, you know, when they, you know, if in doubt, pull it out, just with the whole the whole squirmy worm mentality too. Those work in a different, or the chenille worms, San Juan worms, I guess is what we call them, right? But the same with the whole. This is one that just have in the box. It's a good one to give a try to. Dave, do you have any mop flies for us? I don't know if I lost him or not. I thought Dave was on here.
No, I had you on mute, but no, I didn't bring any in. I'm sorry.
That's all right. I believe I've seen those though in your selection. So that's why I was wondering if you had any samples for us. I thought you were using some mop flies to catch your fish.
Yes, I have. In fact, at Bennett, I was telling Mick earlier that I caught my largest fish at Bennett on a mop fly just below the dam.
That's awesome. What color worked for you there?
I think it was just gray.
Yeah.
Light gray.
That is awesome.
Yeah, I wasn't planning on catching a fish, so I didn't have a net or a stringer or anything. So I got them in and carried them to my car because I needed some trout for
Yeah.
dinner.
Did you
Well, that's
ever
what I
watch-
guarantee catching one is to go totally unprepared to actually get it out of the water. It
Yeah,
happen every time.
yeah, yeah. I
Did you have a license?
took the fish back to the car, put it on the stringer, walked back to where I was fishing, and by that time there was 4 other people fishing that same spot.
It would be, they all saw you with your luck. I actually had, I caught one there and same thing. Then all of a sudden I realized I had left my net. I had to walk about 30 yards downstream and ask a young lady if I could just borrow her stringer. But it is, yeah, that one was not going back in. That was one I was keeping. But you're right. People kind of move in on your space. They see you catching them.
Yeah,
But I figured that's actually how the winter fishing's going around here too.
yeah. I wasn't
All right.
intending to catch, keep any fish until I caught that one.
I know that story. Chris, have you tied any mop flies? He's watching. He's watching a Christmas movie or something.
No, I don't know. I might have, but I tell you what, I don't know where they are. No clue. They're probably in a tree. They're probably in a tree, knowing my luck, though.
They are, the best story I heard on a mop fly was it got caught and trying to pull on it actually broke the fly line, not the leader. And that was the most expensive mop fly story I have for you. Not my fly, not my fly line. But yeah, I did hear that story, that it actually trying to get it out of the tree. So that's why I thought of you, Chris, because you always get out of every single tree.
I
Ever.
know. Luckily,
I guess, otherwise it could turn into even more expensive.
I know. I haven't had to buy the fly line yet, but I'm going to here lately because I got a new fly rod coming.
I heard a 7X.
Yeah, it's Sly Fly Rod Company or something like that. I was talking to them, and they're actually making me one, and then it's gonna be like purple and all kinds of stuff for Chiari. Kind of
Yep.
excited about it.
Semperfly.
No, it's hold on. Let's see if I can find.
Did you find that on the internet?
Probably Sly Fly Rod Company. It's a bunch of veterans and stuff.
Very cool.
Yeah, I'm excited about it.
It was worth
So-
doing to really get an idea about trimming those back to get into the cords, is to just cut one off and just kind of take the whole thing apart. It's really just kind of like chenille, where it's just been twisted and twisted and twisted together and then doubled and twisted some more to get that fluffiness. But
Yeah, I think that's exactly it, Rogers, because you just kind of think, oh, what a silly fly, or how easy is this? And then when you just take it straight from your cut and put it on, but that's exactly, yeah, just experiment with the different materials, because some of them have only 2 cords in it of the thread, and some have 4 or 5. I mean, as you're pulling them through. And then just pitch the other stuff. Don't try to save it for anything. Here's a really good one that corded out from a beige color. Let me see if I can switch over my camera. But it'll keep your flies from falling apart. They will get hit hard when it's the right thing. But here you can see, like, this one corded out great. So I can actually see where all 4 of those are. I don't know who ever came up with this idea to make these, but here you can see, you can get all that fluff apart, but it's a cord that goes all the way through it. And that's the section where, again, when you're tying it down, you want to make sure you leave ample of room for that. Don't cut this too short, and then just grab wherever you want the last section on your mop. And there's another one. See, so they're quick and easy. I did mop, and then I just did dubbing behind it, and then I just added in some saddle. So again, kind of picture what these look like in the water, because that's coming over the top. So it's just a glimpse. As far as it looks like it's either something running with an egg or something laying an egg. So there you go. That would be it on the mops that I have, unless anybody else has anything that they want to. Any other thoughts, questions, dubbing loops? I don't know. What do you guys want to go through?
I'd say the only thing I have the mop is, you say, they soak up and they get wet, is to remember that if you haven't thrown one, once they do soak up the water, they do get significantly heavier.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And target practice is good, right? Because all of a sudden when you just think, well, where'd this go? Especially if you're going off an indicator as well. That's the other thing is one thing seems to go one way or another, but you're right. If you don't know what they look like, put them in water for a half an hour, and then you'll figure out how much they absorb. They are completely different. It's like, it is not the same fly you started out with.
Yeah, I'd only put a very small one of them on, like my 3-weight or something. I don't think I would pick a mop fly to, definitely a chuck and duck.
Yeah. Well, let me show you if I can find any of that. I've got a couple jig heads that are like the great big giant jig heads to throw on this. Nope, can't find it. Rearranged this weekend again. But there's the jig heads that you can get at Walmart or wherever, but you can find them and you can make those into the mop flies. Now it's gonna drive me nuts. I'm gonna find it like a half an hour after we're off the phone. All right, so here's one. They come like this. And how much easier, especially for trying these. Come in the little package, whole bunch of them. But these are heavy to start with. And then you've got a lot of room to play with as far as the styling on it. But it's already painted. It's already got that. It's a very drastic jig. So again, when you're tying this in, it's completely flipped. And it's going for weedless, which is great. But these, I mean, you need straight up a bobber. We won't even
camera.
call it a strike indicator. You just need straight up a bobber. But they're very heavy. They work great in a little bit faster water too.
Amy,
And that,
switch camera.
oh, well, there you go. Thanks, Roger.
We have good imaginations, but
Okay, so all right, so there, I just dumped out the whole pack of them too, but I was showing it anyway. They come in you know, they're pre-painted, they're already a jig head. It has that profile that works almost great for these. They come in a much smaller size too. But what I like with this is it's just easy for, you just want something if you're quick class, even especially working, if you're trying to get folks who are switching over from standard fishing into fly fishing and fly tying. So you start with this and you can just add in, let's see here. We'll go with the Roger Blue on this one.
Have you heard anything more from the VA at all, Amy, on intentions?
No, I talked to Kurt probably 2-3 weeks ago, just as hunting season was starting up. And right now, not for in-person at the VA meetings. You know, there's been a little bit of talk. It's just a matter of what we would all want to do as far as meeting locations, trying to figure out a place, because we can get back together and meet now without having to be at the VA. And so it would just be a matter there. But right now it's not, it doesn't look like an option until probably next spring, unfortunately. I mean, just with what, again, now everybody, every time you turn on the news, you're hearing a whole different, you know, variant or whatever. And hasn't been, I have a VA call later, December 8th. I have another VA call. So maybe a little bit more update on what our St. Louis Jefferson Barracks one is going to do. But unfortunately,
Where does our local
nothing.
TU meet? Do we know?
TU has not had in-person meetings. They've done a couple of their board meetings and then a couple of their other gatherings, but they have not met either. Normally it's at Duffy's, right here in Kirkwood. It's just a pizza place, has decent pizza, good salad. But they have not started up their meetings yet either. And so it is something where we could check with the VFWs. There's a location that's actually really close to Feathercraft, that they are willing to basically just loan us space. So it's just a matter of, you know, what that setup looks like, what they have on hand and what we would have to bring in, which was always the kind of spoiled effect of going into the VA because we had everything right there. So it's still some options, I think, that we're trying to go for with that. So there's a big ugly one, right?
You know, we
On
can
my-
get Kenny out. Kenny can probably set something up for a
Yep.
location.
Yep, and there's been where we do the church for rod building. You know, we just don't want to wear out our welcome with that. And for rod building right now, we're gonna wait until at least a spring right now, just based on talking to Jim Saraceno, just with getting everybody in the building and everything. So that'll pick up later on. But I think we don't want to. A lot, honestly, has to do with staffing. You know, when our hours meet is that after hours that then we have to actually pay somebody to stay after we're there. You know, nobody's just going to give us the keys and say, sure, lock on up when you're done. And that's what we run into. So we have some other programs that are having to pay for facility usage right now. And that's a huge drain on budgeting, but there are options. There's definitely stuff that's in the works every single week as far as trying to get people on an in-person meeting and being able to go that direction too. If anybody has any ideas, that would be great.
What's it? Why don't we meet during the day on a Saturday or Sunday? As opposed to after work, which would, you know, because I could see that same problem you're talking about.
Well, you know, you're gonna have to do it on a weekend because some of these guys are not unfortunately retired. So it would have to be on Saturday.
Yeah, and I mean, it's all open for suggestions. I think that's one of the things too, as far as saying, if you set those up for every single weekend or every other weekend, like what we've done on the fishing outings, it's a matter of who can commit to those. So, I mean, it is something where, yeah, again, I'm open to any ideas. It is something where it's a matter of location. It's a matter of who can commit to be there. When we look at what we were doing at Jefferson Barracks, that's 8-foot tables and like 40 chairs and the rods and everything else. So when we're meeting at a location, what's the expectation of meeting there? So I think that is something where, definitely a meeting with all of us and just trying to figure it out. Right now on everything that's been set up since basically April of getting together, it's been, we have about four participants who have shown up, and we have about 14 volunteers who have shown up. So we kind of need to figure out what that looks like too. Just as far as how can we bring people in and meet times and dates that work. And then we're covering more than an hour and a half drive time for a lot of folks. So what works? I don't know. I don't know that I think committing to Saturdays are great, but Saturday in the middle of the day takes your whole full Saturday. So I don't know. I think probably a survey or an opinion, or just fire your emails at me of what you want to see would be great.
Amy, what about the conservation around St. Louis area?
Yeah, we have Powder Valley, which is right at basically 270, and it's an MDC area. But when you're talking of it's availability of staff, and I think that's the thing too, as far as we've got Glendale City Hall, the churches. Again, we've been really fortunate with the church because Ken has a key and can get us in. But we have other parks and things like that, and it's a matter of trying to figure out what works for everybody, I guess. Do you please, what group do we try to reach right now? Obviously a location closer to Jefferson Barracks would benefit everybody, because that's kind of what we're used to driving. Walt, if you were setting it up, I'm pretty sure you would want something closer to Union just because of the amount of drive time you had to put in. But I think that's.
What about closer to me?
Yeah, sure, Chris. that would be called. It would be called fishing outing.
That'd be a whole weekend trip, like for the thing.
Tie
Tie flies and fish.
How many sleeping bags can you fit in your living room, Chris?
Quite a few. I don't know.
4, 6, yeah. And I think same. I mean, Mick, you come from North area. I mean, and I think that's one of the things too, is we've kind of been on hold trying to figure out when we're going to be able to get in at the VA before we've actually said, okay, now what do we do with that? So we've been supplementing in on the Monday nights as far as tying flies virtually, and then trying to put those in on getting together just to fish as far as options. And, but I think everybody's ready to get back and see each other. Obviously, I think it's working one-on-one or different topics as far as what we're doing. And I'd be ready for that.
Amy, I've had a few people, I have a nice setup at my house, and I've had a few people get together, but I couldn't take more than 30.
Yeah, I can take about 1.5 in mine. So yeah, I think that's the thing too, is also figuring out, where the locations are. So that's kind of the next step of what I've been working on. And then also I think last time when we blindsided Ken House. I haven't talked to him other than just a couple emails and a real quick call. But trying to figure out other contacts within the community where we can start going on some of those things too.
You know, where we go fishing at, you know, the last outing with the veterans and off of 21, I guess it is. That park with all the lakes.
Suisun Park.
Yeah, do they have facilities that would loan us an area?
I don't think so.
No, from the time I spent out there and looking around, they don't really have an indoor facility for meeting.
We could go into the barn with all the animals.
Yeah, that's where you'd have to be, you know.
In the manger.
What about over by you guys? You know, we never, you know, go to Illinois.
That's
with you
illegal.
guys.
That's illegal. Those people, you guys can't come over here.
Are you serious?
Pritzker doesn't want us.
Terry just doesn't want us.
Oh, no, this is a completely different, region and everything. So
Well,
who knows?
Well, I was just thinking through in the casting, it's not that you need a big indoor area, you need to do stuff outdoors. This time of year, it's getting colder, not necessarily the ideal thing, but and it probably varies greatly with the experience of, you know, new participants as they come in and, you know, whether we need to just, when needed, put in a casting training session before we try and take them out to someplace actually fishing, or precede it, you know, that morning to bring the extra rods and spend the time with them to. It's a whole different thing, tie in and all the tables and lights and materials and stuff that have to be pulled out and set up.
Yeah, and I think with, you know, definitely as far as the casting wise and, you know, being able to get people out, you know, successfully doing that before they try to hit the water would be great. You know, just as far as that again, that time frame and setting it up. And that could be anywhere from Emmenegger, that could be Bee Tree, that could be a lot of different parks that are all over the place. And as far as, you know, Terry, I mean, we're able to come to Illinois and hold an outing. It's a difference between starting a program in Illinois.
Right, exactly.
You know, that's a different region correctly. You know, as far as that part of it, but us traveling over to Illinois is not off limits. And so just like if we were to travel to Arkansas,
We'd have to check with our governor to make sure that the people from Missouri could come over here.
I don't think your governor's going to want that, but
It only make the state better.
Well, if you guys could put up a couple of streams, cold water streams over here and stock them with trout, I'd be all over it.
I thought you guys did fall stocking.
Yeah, they do.
I'm talking about streams.
Oh, flat water. That's what we'll call it. Jim
Yeah.
Sandersino's not on call tonight, but he'll call it flat water. I'm not used to, I don't know what to do with this flat water.
Yeah, me either.
So
All
what do
right,
we
well,
run up next week as a topic?
I don't know. What do we want to see? Any suggestions?
yeah, I'll tie my mayfly, just to let everybody know.
Yeah, because we're so impressed with your technical abilities right at the moment, Walt. We'll go with that, and then we'll pick up a backup in case Walt can't tie.
I'm
But we're
curious.
glad-
I'm curious, Walt. Do you have a mouth or ears? All I'm seeing is your eyeballs and half your nose.
He's growing a mustache to surprise us, letting it grow out and gonna be Father Christmas.
How's that?
Yeah,
There you go.
Hey, there's Walt. Where you been, Walt?
I've been doing other things.
He's probably not wearing any shorts. That's why he's got it so high.
Okay, tilt it back up again.
All right,
Like, oh, save us on that.
okay, I'll do my May flight next week.
Okay, we'll do the Mayfly next week, and yep, start thinking Christmas flies. Something we might
Hey,
have to have
what-
Jim Cino tie his Christmas tree fly.
Yeah, what
Well-
kind of camera? Mick was talking about that earlier. What kind of camera would be a good camera to get the clarity for this Zoom section?
I'm still doing
Any
research.
thoughts?
I'm doing research on it still, and I really want
Yeah.
to find something.
Well, if you find something that
I found this,
how about YouTube? Did you check YouTube?
Terry,
Yeah,
I
Yeah,
and
well,
Couple of the YouTube
Okay.
this one,
that cost $1,000 or $2,000, and I was like, well, that's I think a little.
oh no.
no, Terry,
How much
this
did
one
that
here,
cost, Walt?
I think about $40, something like that.
Uh-huh. Does it work?
You guys seen it,
We'll see it next week.
yeah. It seemed like it works. I guess I could plug it in now,
No. It's too late.
but it worked. I got it on Amazon, and it seemed like
Okay.
it worked pretty good, according to Mick and Amy. They said it was okay.
Yeah, I want to see it again. Because I think
So is it
that's easy.
Autofocus.
what's word I want? Is it fixed or is it autofocus?
I think it autofocused.
I want that manual focus so it doesn't try to focus on my feet.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
no, this is manual because the front, it turns. So,
We'll see it next week.
yep, we'll play with it.
Yeah.
I would, one more suggestion, if we do have Christmas flies, I say Chris has to put a trapper hat on, and he's got to tie a Yukon Cornelius.
I'm cutting my beard off now.
Nothing.
Well, you could use that for flies then. That your
There you
beard.
go. I can make
That'd
some,
be interesting.
I can make some dubbing with it.
Hey, Terry,
Hey, sir.
this thing says it's a HD 1080p web camera.
Yeah.
So it's adjustable to f focus, to 2.0 to f4 .8 millimeters.
Cool.
I have no idea what it means.
All right, hey
Well,
guys, I'm jumping off here. I'm gonna go eat.
All right.
All right, Chris, have a good meal.
You too. I'll talk to y'all later.
We'll see you
All right,
soon.
bye-bye.
All right, bye.
Good to see you.
Yes, ma'am. You too.
I'm gonna jump off too,
But
and we will plan on seeing Walt next week. on his mayfly.
Looking forward. to it.
Adios, everybody. Have a good week. Hey,
All
All
right.
right,
Roger,
thank you, everyone.
are,
Bye-bye.
are you going
Remember to
fishing
eat,
this
eat
week?
lots, practice up for Christmas. Day.
in real life.
See you guys. We were
Good to see
listening
you,
to
ya.
you.
How you doing, Mike?
Good. How you doing, Mick?
Doing good. Good to see you. I missed
Yeah,
the
we had
game.
you-
Tell them all I said hello.
Yeah, we had you on our deal.
Oh, cool. Hey, how you guys doing? Good to see you guys again.
Looking forward to going fishing.
Yep. Just tell me when. I'll be there.
All right.
All right. You guys take care. We'll see
You
you.
too.
Thanks, Mick. Have a good
You
one.
guys take care.
Yeah, you too.
Branson?